to walk on the vendor floor. You've seen Dave in his tricked out ambulance to the Paranormal, Dave Olson. Dave, you're with us tomorrow, right? You're going to be doing a presentation tomorrow? You can sit down and answer me. You don't have to come back over here. I don't need to talk to you that close, man. Oh, okay. Well, then screw you. You're not doing a presentation tomorrow. All right. Let's see. Also now, LoriAnn man, medium, psychic, empath, belly dancer, juggler, knife thrower. Troy Hudson is back with us as well. Troy, welcome back, sir. Gowen joining us on stage. Help this shy kid come out of his shell, would you, folks? Greg and Dana Newkirk, come on down. It's your time to play The Price is Right. We've got Billy the Doll, your closest guesstimation of how much it's worth. And ladies and gentlemen, your keynote speaker for the evening. From the sci-fi hit TV series, Ghost Hunters. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the host of the YouTube phenom, What the Fetch, Mr. Grant Wilson! Just say it. Again, we gotta have a nice little foreplay with these people. We gotta bring you in and enlighten it. All right, thank you guys for coming out. We're gonna have a fun little conversation, and we want you guys to be a part of it. So you can do that. We've got a couple of runners with microphones, so if you have questions for any one of our guests or all of them, you can raise your hand and our runners will bring you the microphone and you can be a part of the program. So make sure that you do involve yourselves in this, and you've got a lot of great people up here that have different perspectives on the paranormal.
I also think that there's a big mental aspect to a lot of hauntings that isn't really explored very often. I think that, you know, one of the things that we talk about with the museum is 90% of the stuff that we investigate is an intentional haunting. It's something that somebody has haunted themselves. And I don't think we see a lot of that. I think we've got a lot of, demons are hot right now. And I think that is something that is seen very, very rarely. So that's what I'd like to see, more of a mental look at the paranormal.
I was going to say more demons would be awesome, because we sure hear about them, but we don't see them. Honestly, I feel like we've all gotten the gist of what it's like to walk around in the dark. Like, we get it. For me, I think what's missing is I'd like to replace the investigation in the term paranormal investigation with paranormal exploration. I want to get to the bottom of it. See? That's what I'm talking about.
He's drunk.
No. Beer! No, so like, we get it. Walking around the dark, we get it. It works. We find stuff. But why? Like, do you want to see me come back to TV and walk around in the dark, or would you rather see me talking to Michio Kaku about quantum mechanics and how that affects the paranormal? Wouldn't that be cool? You guys ready to graduate out of this whole walking around the dark thing? That's what I think it's supposed to be.
Oh, that's good. You know, but you bring up an interesting point, but also watching, you know, having done paranormal radio for 13 years, everybody comes to me and they're like, and I can watch it. The real-time aspect of doing radio over TV is that I get immediate response. And when we want the science, enough with the bullshit of the TV stuff and all the flash and dazzle, we want the science. And then we get Michio Kaku on the show and our numbers plummet. Because you don't really want the science. They want the flash and dazzle, and for as much talk as there is, if we want the heady and the intelligent, you can watch sometimes their eyes glaze over as somebody starts intelligently talking about what's causing it. And what they really want is somebody in a tight t-shirt running from demons.
Right, but we have that now.
Right.
That can stay. What we need is someone who can do that and bridge the gap. If you just have Michio Kaku standing there, we're not going to be able to follow him.
So do you think we should get him in a tight t-shirt?
Yes!
All right.
Yes.
Now I'm talking. Should there be more, and Dana, you brought up more of the metaphysical. And I guess, you know, we love the concept of this. And right, I mean, as a perfect example, like Ghost Adventures Live, they brought in a dark witch and a light witch. The concept sounds great, and they were going to swear off in the basement, but it's not Hollywood. You know, they don't walk in and start hovering in a white cloud and start electrocuting each other in the middle of the room. It's kind of, you know, how do you represent the metaphysical in a show that would still be entertaining and grab people's attention?
So for me, really, I utilize the metaphysical as a resource. So one of the things that I do is when we do an investigation, and I know that Katie from Haunt Me also does this, I create communication altars. I utilize the metaphysical as a way to help amplify what's going on, or give what's going on there a way to consistently communicate with us. So in my mind, it's kind of less like Dragon Ball Z, you know, shooting cyballs at each other, and more like actually utilizing magic and the metaphysical as a way to help progress that level of communication.
LoriAnn, I know one of the biggest problems in programming with a medium, Chip Coffey, I think, is one of the only ones, and maybe Derek Acora, that have kind of transcended the show and become bigger. But the problem that remains is it's hard to convey what a medium feels and make it compelling on TV. Because you may be hitting on everything, but unfortunately, until they do the research back to see if what you got was right, on TV and for screen, it doesn't always convey well. What do you think would be a good way to showcase people like you, so it's not just you sitting in a room talking to a gallery of people like, you know, Caputo and Edward and a lot of them have done on these shows? What do you think would be the next step in utilizing a medium successfully in a TV program?
I feel it would be really worth doing. What I think it would be worth doing is having the medium do what they do. Okay, and such as Dave and I, where as an example, you know, I see a little kid named Timmy or whatever, and then, you know, we go through the evidence, and right after I say that, you hear is Timmy. You know, I think if they showed more of that, it would give a lot more credibility to mediums in general. Because I totally believe that without evidence, as a medium, everything's generic, and what's generic is just that, generic. So I feel it'd be important to give the mediums more credibility in the way of allowing the evidence to be shown such as that. I think it's really important.
Now, Dave and Troy, you guys have kind of an interesting background when it comes to this. And Dave, let me start with you, and then we'll move on down. Having background in law enforcement,
yes,
and being involved in the paranormal, do you worry that being a paranormal investigator messes with your credibility as a law enforcement agent? I mean, if you bring me in for drugs and you know, DUI, and then my attorney gets up there and goes, "Your Honor, may I question Officer Dave? So do you believe in poltergeist or phantoms more?" You know, and you start knocking that down. Is that an effect? You have to be careful with what you do and how you represent yourself.
You do, yes. I'm lucky that I haven't come across that yet, but it's always on the back of my mind. But I tell you, from coworkers, the bosses, they see my raw footage. You know, I'll come in on some downtime or during lunch, and I'll get their views. You know, from lieutenants, captains. Hey, did you hear this? And what do you hear? Tell me what you hear. And they see it. So I mean, I open their eyes, and they know now there's something out there. But when it comes to court and stuff like that, attorneys maybe could rip me up, and you know, like I said, I never came across it, but it's always on my mind. It's a possibility that case could maybe be thrown out. You know.
Do you ever get called in? I think somebody's in our attic, or we hear footsteps in our basement as a cop, and they're hiding in their bathroom, shut the door, and you have to get there and go through, and you find nothing. No proof that there's somebody there.
There's been a few cases when I was younger, but no, not lately. But yeah, there's been a few cases where they heard unexplained noises. They thought someone broke in their house, and you know, no one's there.
And then Troy, with your background, and then researching these type of things, do you think that it opens more doors for you because of your background, or does it limit you because people don't necessarily want to come forward because of your, you know, military, your background, and so people shyer about explaining to you what's going on?
Kind of yes and no, and kind of to talk with him about, and then first learning, because there's two sides of me with the paranormal aspect. I have what I do that I talk about today, and then I have my personal life. There's been multiple times when I was a street officer, after it was all said and done, and he was eating the gravel, and we're in the back of the car and going down to the jail. I'm trying to figure out how in the world I'm going to write the report. How was I able to formulate my PC, or my probable cause, to throw this guy to the ground when I never saw the gun, but I knew the gun was in his pocket? So yeah, you have to be very careful, because that credibility is going to go right out the window when the defense is cross-examining me and asking me, "Well, how'd you know?" Well, I'm kind of lucky on one side, because several years ago, I was tribal officer with Choctaw Nation. So on the federal side, working through the federal community is very close, tight-knit. And having that ability, because some of the tribal nations, law enforcement, it's not written in any of the protocols or manuals or rules or SOP or SOGs, but some of them are actually tasked with investigating the paranormal on tribal property in Navajo. And there's some Oklahoma reservations or Oklahoma tribes that behind the scenes are tasked with investigating that. And sometimes they will need somebody from the outside to come in, but at the same time, they need somebody that understands the protocols and how to speak to an elder and how to approach certain things respectfully. So,
You know what I love? Having done the radio show for 13 years, we have a heavy contingent of law enforcement that listen because we were late night. And they're out driving and cruising, and we did a show all about the black-eyed kids. And we were telling story after story. We told this really creepy story about these 3 black-eyed kids that were in this woman's house. And she wakes up and they're standing there next to her bed. And she takes a deep breath and closes her eyes and realizes, okay, this is just a dream. I'm gonna take a deep breath, I'm gonna open my eyes, they're gone. She opens her eyes and they're still standing there. So as she starts to reach for her husband to scream, the little girl in the middle steps forward and goes, shh, we just wanna look at you. And she hollers, and the lights go on, and they go checking through the house, they can't find the kids. Well, we end up hearing from the cops the next day, and they're like, I gotta tell you something funny. You guys, we love your show, we have no belief in the paranormal, this is complete and utter nonsense, but you guys are entertaining, your guests are batshit crazy, and we love them. But you guys were telling that black-eyed kid story. 11:45 at night, you get done telling the story, and we get a call. And the call comes in and says, we have a problem, and I don't remember what the number was. We got a 711, there's an old lady calling in, there's 3 kids in her yard, she doesn't recognize them. And he goes, my partner looked at each other, and we flipped off our radio and said, oh, fuck that. Right? You gotta love that the cops are like, yeah, black-eyed kids, you guys are such idiots. What? Getting out there, is there an aspect of the paranormal, and I want to kind of go down, and we'll start on Grant's end over here. Is there still an aspect of the paranormal that unnerves you to this day?
Yes, it's more the human element. People ask me all the time what scares you the most, and if there are kids in the audience, I usually change my answer. There's a kid there, so I don't know what I'm going to do about this situation.
Earmuffs.
But when you get into the negative stuff, which is pretty rare for most people, not for me, but when you get into it, you find that the negative stuff follows a laughably predictable path as it wears somebody's will down to take them over. And there's a threshold that they cross that you really can't help them anymore. So you've been giving them advice, trying to get them to get their life back in gear so this negative thing will leave them alone. And then they get to a point where you just can't help them anymore, and they usually end up passing away. And that to me it's terrifying. I've had it happen last year. This woman couldn't get the support she needed, and we tried and she wouldn't take our advice, and she ended up taking her own life. That is the part that scares me the most. You know, 300-pound birdcage walking across the kitchen, that doesn't scare me, you know. Cat flying across the room speaking Latin, that wouldn't scare me. But when someone's life is in your hands and you can't help them, that's the worst.
All right, Greg, Dana, I'm curious, are there any items that are just too dark? That you're like, hey, you know, this was a sacrificial knife used to slay through. Would you take that and put it up in the museum, or is that like, you know what, send that to Zaffis?
No, that's a good question. We actually have several items that we won't display in public because, I mean, there's a few of them. Occasionally we'll do like a darker, no-touching display where people can kind of walk up and see it, but very rarely will we display them. I mean, we have a set of dolls that were given to us by a couple law enforcement officers that were causing problems in it was like a government building, and they would basically show me where they touched you dolls. And that type of thing is they're just filled with so much trauma, 50, 60 years of just terrible vibes being pumped into something like that. And it's just not really an appropriate thing, you know, because what we want to do, we want to entertain a little bit while we educate. There's nothing entertaining about that. That's just sad.
Dana, anything that still unnerves you about what you guys do, and especially all the different items and stories people bring to you?
I think, I kind of just flowing off of what Greg was saying, I think for me, more often than not, and even what Grant was saying is, it's that human element when we deal with clients who are bringing us objects that, and the stories that are associated with these objects, especially if they are stories that are their stories, more hearing these stories of incredible trauma. That's always hard. It's hard to sit with someone and have them tell you something that is horrendous that happened to them and that they've then projected into an object, or they feel as if that activity is focused in and around that object. That's always really an incredibly difficult thing to do. Yeah.
Ty, what still unnerves you about this? I know you're excited about this field and getting out there and testing and trying new things, but is there still an aspect that just sets you on edge?
Yeah, everything scares me, and that's why I'm still in this field. I am literally horrified by most things that go on in the paranormal, and that is honestly why I got into it to start, because I wanted to find the opposite reaction to fear and kind of empower myself with education alongside experts like these guys of how to not be afraid anymore, and that's why I'm still here.
Now, Troy, you've got a different kind of background than a lot of people. You weren't a plumber who had to face some real shit in their life, literally. You come in it, you've got a background in this, you've got to face a lot of things, you've got to do a lot of things, but are there still things that set you back? I mean, we talking about the black-eyed kids, we've had military personnel come to me that have said, you know, I have no clue what your show is, my sister played the show for me, I got to tell you what happened to me when I was in Afghanistan. I can't tell you where I was stationed, I can't tell you what happened, but they tell me these stories and you can see the blood run cold. They're like, I've gone in and I've faced guys with guns. This thing was 100 times more terrifying. Are there things that still really upset you?
That's exactly right. That's exactly the way it is. So I worked at Oklahoma City PD, Housing Authority, northeast side of Oklahoma City for 5 years during the Oklahoma City bombing. In my personal life, trying to separate some of this, I deal with spiritual warfare. People can kind of call what it is a gift or where the area of it is, but I still have to, because of what I do with the tribal nations, there's an agreement that I have with a lot of the elders that a lot of things that I deal with, I have to maintain certain protocols when dealing with spirituality. I am a strict Christian by faith. I do everything with what's in line with what the Lord wants done. With that same time, because of that world, the spirit world is so vast and so full of things that we have no clue. And that's why a lot of people have the interest in what's in the dark, what's over there in that dark. What I see in that dark is something that, the only thing that's going to take care of that is prayer, hardcore prayer, spiritual warfare, because there's things out there that a 357 is not going to stop.
LoriAnn, you have an ability to see and witness a lot of things that we don't. Have you ever sat with someone, I love the TV show The Sopranos, and I don't know if you ever watched it. How many people ever watch The Sopranos? There's a great episode where Paulie Walnuts, one of the main kind of bad guys and enforcers, goes to pick his mom up who's at a medium reading. And he comes walking in and the lady's like, ooh, there's some people with you, and who's Tommy K? And he's bloody at this, and he's like, hey, whoa, simmer down, right? And all of a sudden she goes, oh, there's a lot of people, and she's seeing all the people he's killed through his life and career. And to me that was, disturbing and funny at the same time, but have you ever sat down in front of somebody who you just knew was exuding evil or had some dark luggage with them?
People, no. Unpleasantries, yes. Sure. When you sit with someone.
Why'd you look at Grant when you said that?
When you sit with someone that you have a knowing, not just as a medium, but also as a psychic, that, as you say, their background isn't as clean as they'd like to come in and sit down. If you sit with me, I know a lot more about you than you would ever imagine that I probably don't talk about. But it is very unnerving when you sit there. I can remember this one time that as you said that, there's this gentleman that came in, and believe me, when you're a medium, they'll come in your office and they tell you way more than you ever want to know afterwards, right? And this guy is telling me all these things, and I'm looking at him the whole time, and I know that he's murdered people. Like, I know. Can I prove it? Nope. Okay. But do I know it? I know it. I could see it. I could see even how. And so talk about unnerving and there's nothing you can do about it, you know, because you're just a psychic. What do you know? You know, you can't, there's nothing you can do to help
I could talk to
anyone
a
else.
certain Chicago police officer I know sitting on this base who might be able to help you, you know, behind the scenes.
Well, I have worked with police departments and such as a psychic, and sometimes as a medium as well, but and always trying to help. That's why we do what we do. But you know, it's just unnerving when you know you can't help it. It pretty much to what he says. It's the same thing. You can't, when you can't help someone, you really do feel helpless. If you're in the career to do the right thing, which is help people, that's why we do what we do. When you can't help someone, even in the weird, strange gifts that I do have, it's not fun. You know, you wish you could all the time. But when you know stuff that you shouldn't know about people, I know that guy killed people. I know it. I can see it. But there's nothing you can do. You know, but if I'm working with a police officer and that's why I'm there working, well then I can say whatever I get, you know, because that's my job at the time. It's pretty unnerving, yeah.
What about you, Dave? What unnerves you still about the paranormal field?
You know, there's one case that still bugs me. I never got to handle, but I almost gave it up after this one case. Fireman that redid his house, started having night terrors, and things started happening in the house. People would come and visit, leave the same night. Daughter wanted to sleep in her room. And the night terrors got so bad, he saw doctors, did sleep studies, and they couldn't find anything wrong with him. He wanted nothing to do with investigators. He was embarrassed, doesn't want co-workers to know, and stuff like that. So he wanted nothing to do with me coming over. But the wife wanted to do it behind his back while he was at the firehouse, had me come by and investigate. Well, I worked a double shift that day. It's CPD, went to my side job, and I get a call. The first time I'm talking to the client, she goes, I have these recordings I'd like to play for you over the phone of him screaming. And it sounds like he's being raped. It's actually terrifying, listening to the recordings. And she goes, listen closely, because I could hear a female voice moaning his name as he's screaming bloody murder. So she's playing it on her cell phone, she's calling me on the landline, and playing it over the phone, and I hear him screaming, and he sounds like he's being attacked. I pull in my driveway, and I don't want to lose the cell phone connection, so I stayed in my driveway, and I said, I can hear a voice, I don't know what it's saying, it's kind of hard through the phone lines. And then, I don't know if this ever happened to you, but it just stunned me. If you could picture the Exorcist voice, some demonic, sinister voice comes through the phone lines. I'll never forget it as long as I live. And it's blocking us from talking. And first I thought she was playing a trick on me. I'm like, you think this is a joke? Wasting my time? And she goes, what are you talking about? I'm like, you don't hear this voice coming through the line. She goes, no, I hear your phone line going in and out. And then it talks over her voice, and then she heard it, so I know it's not her, and then it starts moaning her husband's name, Daddy, really evil sounding. And then it starts moaning my name, and the phone lines went dead. I'm standing in my driveway, I'm like, what the hell's going on? And then within seconds, it felt like two fingers choking me, pushing my, cutting my windpipe. And I was standing right next to my car, so I grabbed my cross, put it on, and I'm just standing there, I'm in shock. And she calls back, she says, Dave, I have to call you from my cell phone. My home phone won't work anymore. And within seconds, his voice comes. I never got the address, never got to set up a time to go over there. It lasted about a half hour, and just hung up. And I know it scared her to death. I remember I couldn't sleep for 2 nights. It felt like something dark was always by me for about 2 nights. It makes me wonder. I never got to handle the case. I hope I'm man enough to stand my ground because I'd like to document it, but I always worry about bringing that home to my wife and daughter. So that case still shakes me up.
Wow. All right, Greg, now you come at this from I know when we started doing our show, we knew you at a different point in your life. I think you were a bigger skeptic at that time. You were certainly challenging the people that were out there putting forth paranormal claims like that. What was the lever that switched you over to that maybe this isn't all just people fleecing others and trying to take advantage and you know, preying on the weak-minded? When did you start to see that there was something to this?
So I should start by saying that I've always been a believer. I've always been a believer. I used to have a ghost hunting team with my friends when I was 12 years old. But there came a point where I became very cynical about the paranormal field, and there's a lot of people, there's people here who knew me back then. Probably a couple on the stage that knew me back then. And I used to challenge a lot of the things that I saw on television. I used to challenge a lot of things that I saw fellow investigators do, but I didn't do it in a very, very good way. I did it in a very immature way. And I realized there was a point, probably about 7 or 8 years ago, where I started to realize that the crowd of people that were gathering around that sort of thing and read the blog that I put out, where really was just, it was just very mean-spirited takedowns of paranormal television and paranormal research and things like that. I wasn't very proud of what I was making, because I wasn't really making anything, I was actually tearing things down. And I realized that the better way to get a point across, the thing is, I'm not saying anything very different today than I was back then. I'm just doing it in a different way. So now, you attract more flies with honey. So now I can sit in front of a group of people like you who will be a little more receptive to a lot of the different ideas that I have, because I'm accepting of what other people believe, but I can say yes and, or yes or what if this. It's not just tearing something down. That was really what the change was I'd rather hang out with these people, understand why they believe what they believe, why they do what they do, and then I can tell people what I think.
Well, as a social experiment, we planted a small camera inside of Billy a year ago, and now we're going to show the footage from inside your house.
Please no. He's in our living room.
Mainly just be Greg scratching his butt in his underwear.
That's basically all we had. How about that? Talking about the idea of possessed possessions, items that retain some kind of energy to them, binding them, and we'll start on the end and move through quickly. Does that concept play for everybody? I personally have a hard time. Maybe it's just because we had Marianne Winkowski on our show, The Real Ghost Whisperer, and I was very skeptical. She says, I'm not a psychic, I'm not a medium, but I can tell if there's a ghost in your house and what they look like. And if that's not mediumistic, I don't know what it is, but she won't call herself a medium. She said she got tired of going out to find out that it wasn't a ghost, it was a branch scratching the roof. She was tired of wasting all this time, so she told God, she's like, I'm done. You want me to do this, you find another way. And she avoided it for a while, and then she started getting phone calls. And when she would lift up the phone, like a closed-circuit TV, she could start seeing the people's house, only if they had a ghost. And if they didn't, she couldn't see inside their house. And that sounded completely lunacy to me. We had her on our show, and I lined up callers, people I knew and people I didn't know, so I could challenge her if she's messed up. One after another, she's telling them weird stuff, and then the one, she goes, "You've got a small yappy dog." And they're like, "Yeah," and she goes, "And that dog will suddenly jump up like it's been kicked." And she's like, "Yeah, that happens all the time." She goes, "And it didn't happen until recently. You've got something in your garage. I can't tell exactly what, it's like a snowblower or a push lawnmower, and you got it from like an estate sale." And they're like, "Yeah, exactly." And she goes, "Well, the old man is attached to that, and he doesn't like your yappy dog." And you could bring me in a room full of demons, and it wouldn't terrify me as much as the thought of I might be getting stuck with my lawnmower for the rest of eternity. So to me, it's hard to believe that we're part of something like that. Where do you guys each weigh in on that? Dave, we'll start down on your end.
The longer I do this, the more I believe that's a possibility that items could hold residual energy. Just for instance, there was an abandoned police station in the city, and I caught residual gunshots in a voice. And I believe there's bullet fragments in the wall, maybe shell casings buried in the ground, that's causing this residual energy to loop over and over again. And I found out later that area was a gun range. Got 6 shots, it goes way back with a 6-shooter and a voice, which was probably the range guy saying go, to shoot. So I definitely believe, just through my experiences, that items can hold energy.
Oh, holding energy, I understand, because that's psychometry. right? That energy. But LoriAnn, do people stay attached to things? Will I be stuck with my recliner for the rest of eternity? Will Dave be stuck with the blue ambulance out there? What can you tell us about when we die? Are some items we're forced to stay with, or is that a conscious decision?
Things that are attached to other things, that's not my thing at all. I talk to spirit people. I never talk about things I know nothing about. I really don't know a lot about that. I believe in it. Absolutely. I've seen and met people that do that, and it's been proven to me. I like proof in everything I do. But I absolutely like what they do. I'm extremely intrigued in your little hut you got there. I'm extremely intrigued. I don't know. I guess maybe they just really like it, or they don't want to be here, but they do want to be here. Maybe they love the person that sits in that chair. Maybe they love the person that has their item. Maybe they're a lot alike. I don't know what I don't know.
All right, Troy, what about you? Do you think people are bound to items? Can we take a demon and strap it inside a box?
Well, I'd say first off, we absolutely know nothing about our universe. When we think we know, as all the years I've been dealing with Sasquatch investigations, I think I know something, and then turn around and go back out in the field, and they do something, and I'm right back to square one. As far as what your question is, I've also dealt a lot, I have a fairly lengthy background in martial arts. I deal a lot with the Japanese martial arts. The Japanese believe that objects can maintain that has a spirit to it. You have a martial arts weapon, and it's laying on the table, it's not doing anything. You put it in the hands of somebody who knows what they're doing, it's like that becomes an extension of them. A guitarist, Jimi Hendrix or something, can make that little guitar do things that no one else can do. But when he sets that guitar down and he walks off, is that spirit still part of him that's still part of that guitar, and somebody else picks it up and they can't play anywhere near what he has? So the answer is probably have a better chance of walking to the moon than answering that question as far as trying to figure out that. I've dealt with stuff in the past, and somebody will have something. Let's take the native culture. Sometimes when in certain native tribes, some of the personal objects of that person was buried with them because those objects maintain that person's spirit. So in certain cultures, that is believed very strongly. And there's other countries that believe that too. That when someone passes, those items are buried with that person, so
we can take it with us.
Well, the song goes, yeah.
Ty, is this kind of paranormal alchemy? Is it the combination of things, energy, and humanity? I mean, do we blend? Do we become part of things like that?
I think that it's really circumstantial, and there is a lot of energy transference that you work with in magic, putting intent into different things. An example that I can give in real life is that I've been studying runes for a little over 2 years at this point. I know the stories inside and out of what each one means, but I've actually had someone give me their rune deck and ask me to give them a reading, and it didn't work. Because you have to form a relationship and a bond with the tool that you're using. And to say that ends at the end of life, it might not. We might go on further because you've tuned it to a certain frequency and it's going to react at that frequency even beyond your time here with it. I'll also say that I babysat an idol for about a week. That you guys might all know the idol, and I do believe in haunted objects. So I'm going to pass this over to the experts here.
I guess every object is different, just like every investigation that you do. And I think for Greg and I, we really approach every single one of the objects that's donated to the museum as an intense investigation. And so I don't like to kind of use blanket terms and sort of say all together, but in a way, the way that I think about it is as if these objects can be sort of telephones. They're tethered to things. They're not attached to it. They're not stuck to it. At least as far as we've found. But it's more as if there's some type of connection. There's some sort of telephone. A relationship. Yeah, exactly. There's some tether there. And that's some of the objects. Some of the objects, again, are haunted by the people who give them to us. Some of them are ancient and have a completely different story attached to it. So it really is a kind of case-by-case basis.
I think the only thing that I would add to that is, a lot of the artifacts that we deal with, people have haunted them themselves. I don't think people realize how easy that is to do with things. You know, when you put such an intense, strong emotion into something, whether it's, you know, we've got people that come up to us and they say, I've been a paranormal investigator for 15 years and I don't know how you guys do this. I won't go anywhere near haunted objects. But you spend all night in one. Like a house is the biggest haunted object you could get. You know, it's a big, giant haunted object. I think a lot of the times you hear stories about places, Crybaby Bridges are a perfect example, where the story's almost always the same, but after 50 years of teenagers going out there, that story that's not real, they start to experience the activity. They see the lady in the white dress, they hear the baby crying. You can haunt things with intention, and I think we do it all the time and we don't realize that we're doing it. So, that's the only thing that I would add to what Dana said. I think that a lot of the things that we deal with are haunted by us.
Yeah, so I think there are a lot of different things that can cause an object to be haunted. Obviously, residual energy, like what you're saying, that person is pumping their energy into it, and it's technically a residual haunting. But for me, when you say an object's haunted, I instantly feel like Dave was alluding to that the assumption is that it's like a parasite stuck on a thing, and that old man is attached to the lawnmower and can't do anything about it, like in Scrooge, I've fortunately changed my life, all that stuff. Come on. To me, an object, a house, a person is not haunted so much as the subject of interest by another being. So, for example, I had a dream once. I'm not getting prophetic. It was a literal dream. That my wife and I were driving down this perfect New England road. It was beautiful, the trees were ablaze with orange colors, and in the back seat at that time we only had one child, and he was about a year old. And in the street we're driving, and it's beautiful, and in that dreamlike way I knew that no one was gonna find this road. We just found this awesome road. And then something happened, and it went black. And then when I came to, everything was like a twilight blue. And I could hear my son in the back seat crying. So I knew he was conscious and all that. And my wife was out. I woke her up, and she was in twilight blue. Everything was just blue. And we turned and looked at our son, and he was still in full color. That's a dream, remember? And we thought instantly, oh no, he's dead, and we're seeing his spirit. I don't know, dreams don't make sense. That's just what we thought. And I was trying to comfort him, and I couldn't. And then it hit me, wait, he didn't die, we did. He's still alive. And in that dreamlike way, no one was gonna come down this road. And I lost it. I got out of the car, I was pacing back and forth, thinking, am I gonna have to stand here and watch my one-year-old son starve to death while I wait for someone to come down the road and find him, much less someone I trust. And in that moment in the dream, the bright white light opened up, and I looked at it and I flipped it off. I literally flipped it off. I did not want to go. I was going to sit there until I knew my son was okay. Now, am I haunting my son? No, I love my son. Am I chained to him? No. It was my desire, my passion, and that's what was keeping me there. So if you built a house with your bare hands, and it took everything you had, every last penny, and some new family moves in, you might hang around to make sure they take care of the house well. And if they're not taking care of the house, you might want to try to get them out. Stop thinking of them as monsters and anomalies and think of them as people, and everything kind of falls into place.
That's a great point, thank you very much. You tell that story, I don't know if you're aware of this, but there was a few years ago, first responders were called to a site of a car that had flipped over and was in the river in Utah, and it was upside down. They'd been looking for this woman and their child, and as they're approaching, the cops and the first responders have vests on with cameras and audio equipment, and they hear a woman calling for help. And they get down there and they're talking to her as they're trying to undo the car and get her out. And they're like, we're working on it, we're gonna get you out. And she's like, help, please, my baby, help. All right, we're working on it. By the time they were able to do what they had to do, they realized the mother had been dead for I think 12 hours. She'd been upside down in the water. The kid was in his car seat and the water was rising. And she was staying there to make sure that this kid didn't go under. And it slowly did as they got him out. They were able to revive the baby. They took the baby up and revived the baby, but they went back looking to see if there was anybody else here. There was nobody. And that is documented. I mean, it's been on news shows and everything. It's really fascinating footage if you have a chance. We actually talked to the officers on our radio show after it happened. And it's really powerful, but that shows the love of a parent, right? And shows that connection that we still have. Do we have any questions from the audience? Do you have stuff? Yes, in the back there. Hold on, we'll get you a runner. And if you have a question, raise your hand and one of these lovely people will come to you. It's a race to see who gets the microphone there first.
Hi, this question is for Lori. I'm not a big fan of psychics or anything, but I'm thinking of a number. No, I'm just kidding.
2.
No, I was going 61. We're good. What I do want to ask is, I have a good healthy interest in a lot of subjects. The one thing I don't think I've ever heard anybody address, maybe I haven't read enough books on psychics and mediums and that type of stuff. Where do you believe that energy derives that gives that ability?
Your question is, where does the energy come from?
I'm not even sure I can bring it out right.
How do you do what you do? Where do you get that information? How do you do that?
Right, or what creates it? Is it something in your soul? Is it something, like beyond reach? Is it?
I think it can happen in a couple of different ways as a medium. From what I understand, I'm a born medium. Although I don't remember the stories my mother used to tell me about being a medium. I was 39 when I figured it out because I really thought I was crazy. And then I went to the Arthur Findlay College in England for the first time in 2006. And in doing so, I started having conversations with people who were just like me. So for the first time in my life, I was not an anomaly. So it really felt like home to me. When I was there, they taught me how to take what I have and blend it with the spirit world. But the thing is, as a medium, you never control the spirit world. You literally sit there and have to wait for this information to come to you. And then the more you do it, like anything you do in life, the more you practice, the better you get. To answer your question, I'm not exactly sure how all that blending works. I'm not exactly sure how I do what I do. But I think it's pretty cool because it helps a whole lot of people. So does that help? Yeah. Okay.
Generally, does it seem like people in the ghost state have a choice and it's kind of up to them and when they can leave and pass on because they're haunting their children or taking care of their children in their house? Or does it seem like it's just they have no control and they're trapped? I've always been fascinated with whether it's really up to them or if it's just like they're caught in some kind of limbo.
If I may, to me, this is interesting, and like I said, if you think of them as people, I could stand here and in the name of Jesus command you all to leave, and you're not going to leave. You have free will. I have no power over you other than the power of suggestion. And I believe that continues when we die, because people like, I blessed my house and the ghost didn't go anywhere. Yeah, well, you can say a prayer in front of me and I will still be who I am. So it's kind of a sticking point with me when people have an entity in their home and they invite a group out or a psychic out and say, I need you to move this thing along. Well, that's great. It's convenient for you and the investigator, but it's not convenient for the person. If a psychic came up to me in that car accident in my dream and told me to go to the light, I would have flipped him off too. It's not, they're absolutely going to go when they're ready to go, and I think it's rude to try to rush that process just because it's convenient for you. I think you should do the due diligence and try to find out what's keeping them there. What do they need? Just like any good human should do to any other good human. Try to figure out what they need, and then they'll be free to do what they want to do. It's absolutely their decision in my mind. That's my stance. You know, take it with a grain of salt.
Any other questions from the audience? Yes, sir. Hold on, we'll get you a microphone. Lori, it would help if you could psychically tell us who's going to ask the next question so we can get the microphone over there.
Point in each of your career points where you just got frustrated and decided just wanted to pull out of this and just do something else, or
About 10 minutes ago? About 10 minutes ago.
and also one for Greg's, like, how does it feel to look and dress like a rich supervillain?
Wonderful.
Wonderful.
I guess if I've got the mic, I'll say that, you were talking about me in my previous life. That was the time when I decided, I'm sick of all this. I saw what was happening on television, it was all very, very new, and I didn't agree with what was going on, and so my way of pulling out was to just make fun of all of it and to tear it all down. But I think the pendulum swings. I think every single one of us probably on the stage can think of a time when we've gone, you know what, I'm kind of fed up with this, I want to walk away. I mean, you walked away from Ghost Hunters for a little while. You wanted some time with your family, right?
Yeah, I walked away from TV and the rigors of the schedule, but I've continually investigated. And for me, I think the trick is this. It's all about, if I may take over the mic from you, it's all about your goals. If you set out to catch a ghost and definitive proof of the afterlife, you're going to burn out. That's called ghost hunting. I was on a show called Ghost Hunters, but I'm not a ghost hunter. You'll burn out. If your goal is to find the truth and help people, you're going to find equal satisfaction in if it's dead Uncle Fred or bad plumbing, as long as it's black and white. And that's why I've been doing this for 30 years, and I'm more passionate than ever, is helping people. And so frustration and burnout only comes when you're looking for something that's very, very hard to find. If you can find that satisfaction with just black and white truth, you'll last forever.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with exactly what both of you are saying. I think that you get to a point maybe as an investigator where you just kind of accept that you may never find that definitive, perfect piece of evidence that will convince every single person on the planet that the paranormal is, something legitimate. But it doesn't matter, because that's not the point. The point is curiosity. The point is exploration. The point is continuing to delve into this space with that intention. And when you do that, when you learn to do that, it becomes such a joyful, fun experience. And it's just something that becomes so much a part of your life because it is joyful and it is about curiosity. And I think once you get to that point, and for many of us, I think it takes a while to get there sometimes. But once you do get there, then you're in the current and you can just have fun and experiment and collaborate with like-minded people. But it takes a while to get there.
I love the term that Grant used earlier, paranormal exploration, because I think that really hits the home on how to do this in a way that you won't burn out, because you're always losing Clark into the dark. For me, like anything in my life, and probably a lot of people in this room, anything that you've been doing for a while, you can burn out on it, because being the best at anything doesn't allow you growth or inspiration. I personally don't like getting to my max on any part of my life, and so in the paranormal, when I've reached those moments that you're talking about, those are my pivot moments. We got a ghost to come here. There you go. That's the most awkward thing I've seen all day. So, for me, when I reach those close to burnout moments, it's time to pivot and time to learn something new and stretch my beliefs. And that's how I got to my lecture that I gave earlier on paranormal alchemy, where I came from a ghost hunter's world, where if it didn't blink on my meters, it didn't matter. And now I'm in this bizarre miasma of magic with like Dana and Katie on my team, where I'm learning how impressive it is to follow Katie's intuition to a certain point in the building, and that's where we start our investigation, instead of my old terms where I'd walk around for 3 hours wasting my time until something blinked at me. So that's how I've grown.
Coming from the Bigfoot side, the Bigfoot Research Organization world is similar to Congress. It is a fist fight beyond, well, I'll be nice, there's kids in the crowd. Multiple times have I decided, because someone's always wanted to be the Christopher Columbus of the Bigfoot world, to be in the ones they found. In my opinion, it's going to be yes or no. Again, it's like trying to walk to the moon. It's going to be quite difficult. And right now I'm okay with the way it is, because we don't need a bunch of knuckleheads with guns in the woods shooting at something that looks dark and hairy. I was being nice. I would have used some other redneck. I'm from the South, so I can use those words. The door opened up. We do go out in the field, but we go out in the field for a certain reason. But our organization is more about education. we work very close with the tribal communities, and ours is about the education aspect, not going around smacking a tree with a baseball bat. So it is when you watch it, when someone does it for the first time and they look like they...
Do you ever wonder, because it's a hot spot, you've got a set of Bigfoot hunters on one side of the woods, and there happens to be another set on the other side of the woods, and they're cracking the tree with a bat, and the other ones are like, did you hear that? Back, and the other guys are like, yes, they're responding. And then you idiots are on the other opposite sides of the woods going, woo!
Actually, very true story. Our Bigfoot conference is in the first weekend of October. People ask all the time they want to come up and go on an expedition. I said, that is the worst weekend to be going on an expedition. Yeah, did you see that plane? It's a wasp.
They're real.
Yeah. And there's some groups on that ridge and some groups on that ridge, and you can hear them going back and forth. And how you know it's a recording, because you can hear every now and then at the end of the whoop or whatever it is, you can hear that audio aspect of it, and there's replies. So it's two groups, whatever, going back and forth with their, and I'm pretty sure the real ones are down in the creek just having a laugh at our expense.
For me, it's going to be a little bit different, obviously, than all of them, because I'm not I am an investigator, but I only do the medium side of it. I think the only time I ever wanted to hang it up and quit was in the very beginning, where you literally have to come out of the closet, so to speak, as a medium, and have the people around you kind of look at you like you have three heads. So for me, that's when I really kind of wanted to hang it up, was in the very beginning, coming out of the closet as a medium. The more I did what I did, the more I got comfortable with it, obviously. But in the very beginning, I didn't understand even how I did it. For the first 4 years of doing readings and doing public events, I wasn't convinced I needed more evidence as a medium that this, how does this all work? I asked myself that over and over and over, still today. But now I understand it a lot more the more you do it. But I think that's the only time I really wanted to hang it up, was in the beginning, trying to come out of the closet as a medium. It was really hard.
With me, the only thing that worried me about getting frustrated and maybe giving it up, I had to learn how to protect myself and my family better. There's been at least a handful of times after an investigation where some followed me home. The last thing I want to do is cause problems at my home. And I have an 8-year-old daughter, and so that always worried me. But with Lori's help and other mediums out there, I learned to protect myself, the team, and my goal is now, I almost feel like it's a calling. I don't know if it's the policeman in me, but I love being able to help people. And it's not just the living. With Lori's help and other mediums, I love being able to help the other side. I get a lot of help me's on the EVPs. And always, why are they asking for help? Maybe it's what we were talking about before, are they stuck? Do they not see the light anymore? Do they want to tell their story? But almost every investigation, it seems like I get a couple help me's from the other side. So it's very important to me now. And it took time, growing into this. But my main goal as an investigator is to help not just one side, but both sides, if at all possible.
Thank you. I'll say as well, we started, Grant and Taps and I started the big paranormal conferences back in 2006 of doing these things. And I burned out after a number of years of doing these because I wanted to have every piece of equipment. I wanted to do this, and I realized that I became a slave to the technology and how much I was missing. And now doing the paranormal, what kind of saved me from it was at a few of the events, and Grant and I would do it, we wouldn't touch any equipment. We would just watch and just let things happen. And to me, I know sometimes clients want physical proof, they want a photograph or video, and that's subjective. Again, how many times do any of us look at a piece of evidence that to you is a ghost, to Ty is dust, to Grant is an alien? We all have a different perspective on what it is that we're looking at. And now what I found, and Grant, if I can get you to stand up, what I found that works really well when we go into a place like the Palmer House Hotel in Minnesota, and people are around with their tools and they're all looking in one direction, a lot of times I'll get back to back with Tim and I'll look in the opposite direction, and we both kind of keep our eyes in areas where nobody's watching. And if I see something, I can go like this, and Tim will turn around and look, and then he can reach over and grab somebody, and then all of a sudden, instead of everybody focused on a little 3x3 inch screen, we're all standing there watching something pretty remarkable happen right in front of our eyes. And that kind of brought the electricity back into what we do. And I don't need a photograph that you're gonna laugh at, or a video that you're gonna mock, or audio that you're gonna say, I don't care what you hear. I'd rather just have the experience and explore. Right, nobody's gonna believe it anyway. I'm just gonna show what I can show, and you know, if I can give a client, somebody who's asked me to come into their home or business to give them an answer, I would rather say, I physically saw what you're explaining. I don't have a photograph or video to prove it. I don't think you're crazy. I think there's something going on. And sometimes that's all they need to hear. So that to me has been a big part of what kind of took me out of feeling like I was burning out, is get back into being the human element of what we do. And that reconnects us, and I think you guys are gonna have a lot more experiences with that as well. And with that, I know we've gotta get going because it's a dinner break right now. So let's give a big round of applause. Dave